I watched the cigarette smoke trail out the window as we pulled up to the ranger station. It isn't often that I receive a call from Rick. Normally, rangers need to file an incident report before their case is deemed worthy of investigation. But Rick and I go way back, and I owe him a favor or two. I've only been called out to Sardis National Park twice in the past year, both for suspected cryptid sightings, both false alarms. The first was a boy playing a prank on Rick, claimed he had seen a Wendigo. I don't blame the guy for falling for it. That kid put on some real theatrics. The second was a wolf with rabies. Nothing to scoff at, sure, but it was a cakewalk compared to the abominations that I put down. As we rolled to a stop, something told me that this case wasn't going to be as simple as disproving a lying child or putting down a sick animal. No, this was going to be something invigorating. I could feel it. My wife hates it when you smoke those things in the car. That crap gets all over me, my partner said, slipping out of the driver's seat as I followed suit. She's starting to think that I'm the one going through a pack a day. Agent Norman Creel is my junior officer. Good kid, a real family man, which is a shame in this line of work. They don't select many guys with something to lose to join the United States Cryptid Department. This is a dangerous job. Unfortunately for Creel, the department is short-staffed. Tough luck. You'd be inclined to pick up a couple bad habits yourself if you'd seen half the crap that I have, I said as I closed the passenger side door. Yeah, well, I'd appreciate it if you go a little easier on it. Smoke clings to your clothes, you know. I'll tell you what, I said, taking one last drag from my cigarette before crushing the butt beneath my boot. You solve this case and that wife of yours can send me the dry cleaning bill. Deal? Before he could respond, the door to the ranger station swung open. Rick stood in the doorway, all 6'5" of him. Something was different from the last time that I had seen him. His face looked darker, more grim. I knew then that we were in for a special case. Marty, always a pleasure, Rick said, shaking my hand with a loose grip. If you'll be so kind, I'd prefer to skip the small talk. There's something that I need you to see. Creel and I shot each other a glance, and without another word, we followed him inside. Rick placed a steaming mug of coffee before each of us as we took our seats opposite him. He didn't so much as look at his own cup. Instead, he directed his attention to me. Thank you, Rick. I could use a cup of joe. I know you wanted to skip the formalities, but this is my partner Norman Creel. Try not to scare him too badly. Rick tightened his jaw as he glanced at my junior agent. Sorry, Norman, can't make any promises. Creel nodded. The kid was holding it together pretty well, all things considered, but I got the sense that the anticipation was eating him alive. I'll cut to the chase, Rick said, leaning forward in his chair. We've had 3 people go missing in the past month alone. For a park this size, that's unheard of. I think something's taken them. I watched a chill shake Creel's body, but he quickly recovered, trying to mask his growing sense of unease. Okay, so a couple of people have gone missing on a hiking trip. Yeah, that's out of the ordinary, but what makes you so certain that this is a matter of the USCD? I said, leaning back in my seat. Rick's eyes darkened. He thumbed through his phone before passing it across the table for Creel and me to look at. The photograph on the screen depicted a footprint, a massive one that came to sharp points at the toes. The indentation was too big to have come from a bear. If I hadn't known any better, I would have thought I was looking at a prop from Jurassic Park. I sighed. All right, Ricky, you've got me convinced. This looks like the real deal. Do we have any witnesses? Anyone who can clue us in on what this thing might be? You don't know what it is? Creel asked, his brows furrowed. I scowled at my partner. Why the hell would I ask you if I knew what this thing was? I'm not in forensics. Besides, there's stuff out there in those woods that we can't even fathom. things that shouldn't exist. It could be a Wendigo or it could be something else entirely. The point is, I don't know what the hell this thing could be, I retorted, shaking my head. Rookies. Creel's gaze fell to the floor. A pang of guilt stabbed me through the chest like an ice pick. Maybe I was a bit too tough on him. And before I had a chance to apologize, a steely resolve overtook his countenance, and he met Rick's gaze. Well, alright, what about the missing people? What information do we have on them? Rick stood from his chair, made his way to a desk, and then returned to us. He slid 3 pieces of paper across the table. Alice Hoffman, 49, went missing while on a hike with her husband 3 days ago. Daryl Morrow, 26, disappeared on a camping trip with his college friends last Friday. And this one, Rick said, pointing to a photograph of a little boy. This is Tommy Chang, age 4. Vanished from his father's tent in the middle of the night. It happened 3 weeks back. My heart sank. Any case had a little extra weight when there was a kid involved. Logically, I knew there was a chance that we would find him alive and well, but past experience told me not to get my hopes up. Alright, this is useful, I said, snapping a photograph of each report. Now we know what to look for. And did their loved ones notice anything strange? Any odd noises or feelings before their people went AWOL? Yes, only one. Alice's fiancé, Christopher. He reported seeing a pair of glowing eyes maybe 20 feet ahead of them in the foliage. Said he was locked in a staring match with them, and the next thing he knew, both the eyes and his fiancé were gone. Just the eyes. No physical description, I asked, pursing my lips. Not really. Said he thought he could see this black mist surrounding them, but didn't know if it was his mind playing tricks. Creel jotted down the details as Rick finished his statement. I glanced at Creel and then turned back to Rick. That helps a lot. If what Mr. Webb says is true, we can assume that this thing is some kind of time warp or hypnotic ability. That eliminates most of the usual suspects. And Creel looked up from his notepad. He paused, leery of asking me any more questions, but ultimately he decided to take the chance. So you've got a list, like some creatures you think it might be. I nodded. I do. It's too early to jump to conclusions, but I've got a hunch that I know what we're dealing with. And if I'm right, we're in for a real shit show. 5 minutes later, we found ourselves on matching ATVs on our way to the scene of the incident. We all occurred in the same general vicinity and we didn't have to drive far. Here, Rick said, abruptly stopping his vehicle and topping off. This is where Tommy went missing. The campsite was devoid of people as expected. It boasted a gravel lot, a fire pit, and a brown post jutting from the earth with a white number 4 imprinted on it. A stream flowed quietly in the background. The area was serene and secluded, the perfect place to make someone disappear. Mind if we have a look around? I asked, dismounting my ATV. Be my guest. Wouldn't have brought you out here otherwise. The local police have already combed through the area. I nodded as Creel followed. Where was the print found? He asked, his eyes scanning the ground. Further up the stream, somewhere the police haven't looked. Well, no point in sticking around here then, I said, heading for my ATV. Take us to the main attraction. It didn't take long to reach our destination. Rick took us a couple minutes down the main trail and stopped in a clearing that backed up to the stream. He led us to the bank and then paused. My heart dropped as I stared down at the crater in the mud. Rick's photograph hadn't done it justice. The footprint was 3 times as large as my boot and twice as wide. We were dealing with something big. As Creel stood there mesmerized by the sight, I snapped a few photos of my own, and then I produced a black rod the size of a lipstick tube from my pocket and I waved it over the print a few times. "I'm not sure if I should ask, but what is that thing?" Rick said, studying my every move. "Oh, it's a special toy from the USCD. It's called a ghost scanner," Creel replied, piping up before I had the chance to speak. "But that's not all it's used for. It'll trace the print for residual essence of the creature. If we're lucky, we might be able to identify the thing. It works best when fresh, but there is a chance we could still get a head off of it a couple of days after the track was made." "Oh, someone's eager to show off what they learned in training," I said, shooting him a wink. My smile melted as I returned my gaze to the ghost scanner. It blinked red. No dice. "Well," I said, rising to my feet, "the answer's that—" I froze. Something caught my eye, rooting me to the spot. On the opposite side of the stream, barely visible through the dense underbrush, a set of yellow glowing eyes stared back at me. I found myself paralyzed, sweat beading atop my brow. An intense, overwhelming feeling of dread settled into my gut. Its stare was like hot coals burning into my chest. And then without warning, the eyes vanished, seemingly into thin air. What is it?" Creel asked, shaking my shoulders. A chill racked my body as I tore my focus away from that spot in the forest. I couldn't explain how I knew, but I was certain that what I had just seen was the monster that we were chasing. "I saw it. It's following us." I watched as the color drained from Creel's face. Rick frowned and turned, scanning the surrounding woods and coming up empty. "Alright, say that really was the thing that you're after out there instead of a bear or a deer like I'm inclined to believe. What are you gonna do about it, Marty?" I grinned at him and then took another cigarette and placed it between my lips. "What any seasoned USCD operative would do in our shoes," I said, lighting up and taking a deep drag. "Creel and I are going camping." We returned to Site 4 later that evening and began to set up just before dusk. I stoked a fire while Creel managed our sleeping arrangements. Marty?" he said, his brows furrowed. "Yeah, what's up?" I replied, poking at the fire with the stick. "Where's the tent?" I turned back to him and grinned. His face dropped. "Oh, we're sleeping under the stars tonight. Better pray it doesn't rain." Creel narrowed his eyes at me, crossing his arms. "And why the heck are we doing that? You've already allegedly seen the thing scoping us out. What good does it do to sleep out in the open?" I sighed, reluctantly meeting his stare. "Yes, it's true that I caught a glimpse of what I believe to be our beast, but it's also true that I don't have any solid proof. I haven't seen or heard anything since either, and it's been hours. Who's to say that I wasn't mistaken? I'm no spring chicken, you know. My senses aren't as sharp as they used to be." "So what? Does it really matter if you saw it or not? I don't understand how sleeping outside in the bug-infested wilderness does us any good in this case." I closed my eyes and pinched the bridge of my nose. Rookies. Let me put it like this. Say you're stranded in the middle of the woods. You haven't eaten in days and you're so hungry that you could eat a horse. Then you stumble across a full 3-course meal sitting right in front of you, ready to be eaten. It's pretty enticing, right? Creel nodded. His expression had shifted. His thinking cap was on. Now, say instead you're walking along, same scenario, you're still hungry as hell. Only this time, instead of a heaping pile of delectable food lying right there, it's a big plastic tarp. Looks a whole lot less appealing now, doesn't it? Okay, fine, I see your point. So, then what's your plan? To have one of us get carried off into the night by some unknown behemoth, never to be seen again. A smile blossomed across my lips. Not entirely, but you are getting warmer. The look of disgust written across Norman Creel's face was enough to elicit a chuckle from me. You're not joking, are you? I'm not. From what we know, this creature takes one victim at a time. Even when multiple other people are present, only one person ever goes missing. Why is that? Wouldn't 2 juicy steaks be more appetizing than one? Well, not necessarily. Not if you don't season them and slather them in butter and sear them to perfection, right? First, the thing has to lure its meal back to its home. None of the police reports mention anything about foul play. No blood samples were found at the scene. Just one witness claiming to have seen a pair of eyes and 3 missing persons. Alice Hoffman's fiancé was untouched. Daryl's friends were left unscathed. Tommy's parents were completely fine. In my professional opinion, I believe that whatever this beast is, it's picking off the easiest target of the group. And when it's had its fill, that's when it reemerges. You think this cryptid doesn't kill at the scene, so your master plan is to have one of us get captured, probably me if I had to wager a guess, and then the other is going to burst in at the last moment and save the day. That's insane. No wonder your last partner couldn't hack it. That's the thing, Creel. To make it in this field, you need to have a few screws loose. You'll figure that out in time. Trust me. I didn't receive a response. Instead, he turned back to our gear and resumed unrolling his sleeping bag. I stared up at the night sky, feeling my eyes grow heavy. The stars were bright out there, isolated in the forest. None of the pictures do it justice. There's something about stargazing in the remote wilderness, far from civilization, that elicits an immense feeling of peace. At that moment I felt it, all too aware that this was just the calm before the storm. As a younger agent, I wouldn't have been able to get a wink of sleep. A monster is out there stalking us after all, an intelligent one. But 20-odd years in, I don't blink twice at the things that go bump in the night. Not like Creel does. Hey Marty. He was staring up at the sky, same as me, his hands folded over his chest. What's up, kid? If I die tonight, I want you to tell Mary Ann that I love her, okay? Can you promise me that? I scoffed. Norman, look at me. He shifted his gaze to meet mine and he stared expectantly. There's a very, very good chance that you're not going to die tonight, but that all depends on you. You have to keep a cool head and go along with the plan. I know that's easier said than done, but you're going to have to trust me on this. The higher-ups don't just throw anybody into this mess of career. You were handpicked for a reason. I know you've got what it takes. He smiled before returning his attention to the endless expanse of stars overhead. You know, Marty, that's the only time I've ever heard you use my first name. Yeah, well, you're earning your stripes. You're just buttering me up because this is the last time you'll see me alive. I see what you're doing here, old man. We shared a hearty chuckle, and for the first time, lying there in that dark, humid forest, I felt a real connection with my partner. I awoke to a piercing screech. My eyes shot open and I frantically searched for the source of the noise. I released a sigh of relief when I realized that it was coming from my phone, but my relief was short-lived when I remembered what that meant. Creel had been wearing a tracking device. If he wandered far enough out of range, my phone would start blaring, alerting me immediately, just like it was doing then. I bolted out of my sleeping bag, threw on my boots, and opened my phone. Creel had crossed the stream. That could only mean one thing. The beast had lured him away. I sprinted toward the blip on the map, plunging into the cool water. The stream didn't look deep, but soon I found myself submerged up to my waist. I cursed as I trudged onward. Normally, I would have felt a thrill chasing my partner through the dark forest, attempting to rescue him from the clutches of some eldritch abomination. But that night was different. It felt wrong, like I was missing something big. As I would come to find out, my intuition was correct. My pulse spiked as my feet sloshed onto the opposite bank of the stream. Creel's blip was getting further away, much further. I picked up my pace, sprinting as fast as my aging legs would carry me. fighting through branches and clopping over uneven ground. The woods were eerily silent, even for the nighttime. That was never a good sign. My heart sank when I looked at my phone again. My efforts to find my partner felt more futile by the minute. It was clear that I had underestimated the creature. Whatever it was moving at breakneck speed while I was lagging behind. But just as I was beginning to fear the worst, it stopped. The little red dot stayed perfectly still. This was my chance. I couldn't let my partner down, not after the lofty promise that I had made him. I crashed through the underbrush, my legs aching and my lungs burning like hot coals. Once I had managed to close the distance, I slowed and assessed my surroundings. I was close, but I hadn't arrived yet. I had to be silent if I wanted to get the drop on this thing. I crept forward, struggling to mask my ragged breathing. Each footfall sounded thunderous amidst the silence. When I glanced down at my phone again, my brows furrowed, and I froze in my tracks. I should have been there. The blip on my screen was showing that I was right on top of it. My heart dropped. This couldn't be right. I took a hesitant step forward and I heard a distinct crunch under my boot. I stooped, searching the ground. When I saw what had made that noise, my eyes grew wide, and all the color drained from my face. Creel's tracker was lying in the dirt, crushed to smithereens. But that wasn't the worst part. Once I had processed what I was looking at, my gaze fell back to the forest floor. There, partially obscured by the leaves, was the colossal footprint. I didn't have time to use the ghost scanner. I had to move quickly if I wanted to find my junior operative alive. I pressed onward, continuing on my initial trajectory. I didn't care how much noise I was making anymore. If that thing heard me coming, then all the better. There was a chance that if it diverted its attention to me, then at least Creel might be able to escape. I kept running, my heart beating faster than it ever had before. I crashed through the forest, the sound of my wet boots hitting the earth resonating off the trees. To my surprise, eventually, the underbrush opened up, and I found myself standing under the moonlight, staring across the clearing. My eyes fell to a light shining from a short distance away. I quickly realized what I was looking at. It was the entrance to a cave. And standing outside of it, with Norman Creel's limp body hanging from its mouth, was the monster. The creature was nearly 7 feet tall. It was unlike anything that I had ever seen before. The thing appeared to be an awkward mashup of a moose and a Komodo dragon. Its head was slender, no teeth visible in its mouth. It was black as night, as if its body was made of shadow. The only part of it that wasn't shrouded in darkness was its eyes. They glowed a deep yellow. I recognized those eyes. They were the same ones that I had seen the day before. The beast paced from one end of the entrance to the other, as if expecting someone, as if expecting me to approach at any moment. I shrank back behind a tree, holding my breath and praying that it hadn't noticed me. The thing scanned the tree line, its radiating eyes piercing the darkness like beacons. It let out a grunt, satisfied with its findings, and proceeded into the cave, my partner dangling from its mouth. I doubled over the second that it was out of sight, my breath coming in quick and shallow gasps. Creel couldn't be dead. He just couldn't be. If he was, then his blood was on my hands, and I wasn't sure that was something that I could live with. After taking a moment to rid the panic from my system, I continued to the mouth of the cave. I stared inside, willing myself to cross the threshold. The dim orange glow was inviting, a deadly facade to an unknowing traveler. But I knew exactly what I was getting into, or so I thought. I finally found the courage to move, spurred on by the notion that I might still be able to save my junior agent. I crept along the stone passage, guided by the light emanating from within. The further I walked, the more uncomfortable I became. Deer carcasses littered the floor in various states of decay. The stench was enough to bring any man to tears. Bloody streaks coated the walls, some old, some still fresh. I had a feeling that whatever this thing was, it had been living in that forest undetected by people for a long time, and that it was much more dangerous than I had originally assumed it to be. Eventually, I reached a sharp turn in the cavern. I heard activity from behind the corner. I took a deep breath and as I prepared to round it, and then I produced my stun gun from my waistband, thanking the heavens for its waterproof holster, and I told myself that I would strike on the count of 3. 1, I whispered over the pounding of blood in my ears. 2, I could hear footsteps. I paused my countdown, listening intently. These weren't the steps of the massive creature that I had seen just moments prior. They were too light. No, these sounded human. 3. I didn't give myself any more chances to procrastinate. I burst around the corner ready for a fight. What I encountered sent a shockwave of fear rippling through my entire body. When I rounded that corner, I was met with a perplexing sight. An old man stood before a wooden table chopping vegetables. A fire roared beside him, warming a pot of what appeared to be broth. And to the right of that, sitting on the floor, sat a little boy, his hands and feet bound by ropes. He was alert, his eyes pleading with me to help the second that he saw me. I recognized that boy. It was Tommy Chang. As incredulous as it was, seeing the child alive wasn't what shocked me the most, because I suddenly found myself with the barrel of Norman Creel's firearm pressed against my skull. "Creel, what the hell are you doing?" I hissed, trying not to alert the old man to my presence. He didn't answer. It was then that I noticed the glassy, hazed-over look in his eyes, and I understood it then. My partner wasn't acting of his own volition. He was being controlled. I was trying to figure out how in the hell I was going to get out of my predicament when the old man spoke. "You thought you'd have the upper hand on me, didn't you? I've got your partner under a trance. One wrong move and he'll put a bullet through your skull." I sighed. "I have to admit, you're smarter than I thought." A tense silence permeated the room. The child's eyes darted between us. A pang of sorrow jolted through me when I saw the fear written across his face. I had to save him. "You're the beast from the woods, aren't you?" I said. I didn't know what talking to that thing would accomplish, but it felt necessary to break the tension. "Yes, I knew from the second that I saw you studying my print that you were going to be trouble. I need you out of the picture." I glared at the old man. He was dicing an onion without a care in the world. Something about his calm demeanor infuriated me. But why? Why do you need me out of the way so badly? Say you do kill me. This place is going to be swarming with USCD agents. The old man chuckled. "Swarming? When your numbers are so thin? Surely there would be a response, but nothing that I couldn't handle. Not to mention the fact that you're the most seasoned operative of them all. I've been inside your partner's head, Martin. Yours too. I'm calling your bluff." I gulped. He was right. Another team would be sent to avenge Creel and me, but they couldn't afford to keep sending lambs to the slaughter, and he knew that. "Alright, fine, you want me dead, lots of people do. If you're going to off me, at least tell me why you're doing all this. Why did you change up your diet to include people as the main course? I doubt you just woke up one day and decided to go on a killing spree." The old man finally turned. Though he took on a different form, his eyes maintained that same deep yellow glow. They illuminated his pointed teeth. The teeth of a predator, a carnivore. No human has teeth like those. He took a step toward me, and a shiver crawled up my spine. He was still carrying the knife. I didn't want to in the beginning, he said, circling me like a vulture, but I couldn't take it anymore. Do you know how long I've lived in this forest, Martin? Centuries. I was here long before humans discovered this place, and I will persist long after you're gone. I've watched your kind destroy my home for decades. You pollute the water. You tarnish the air and desecrate the land with your filth. Worst yet, you maim the creatures who call this place home. This boy, he spat, stabbing an accusatory finger in Tommy's direction. His actions were the final straw. Tears began to trickle down Tommy's cheeks, and he released a small whimper. Look, I get it, people suck, but he's only a kid. The old man scoffed. Oh, this child is no innocent creature. He continued, directing his attention to Tommy. He was the catalyst for everything. This boy is pure evil. And what did he do that was so bad that it justifies murder, huh? What could possibly be so awful? I was beginning to lose my patience. The old man circled the boy, the fear in his eyes spiking higher with each step. Go on and tell this man what you did. Say it. Tommy sniveled, snot dripping down his nose. I killed a rabbit, he spluttered, breaking down into a fit of sobs. Oh, there it is, the truth. And what else did you do to that rabbit? The old man seemed to glean some sort of twisted enjoyment from the interaction, as if making Tommy confess his sins somehow made up for his own. The whole thing made me sick. Tommy inhaled quickly, hyperventilating. The old man snarled above him, nudging the boy with his foot. Out with it. What else did you do to that poor rabbit? Leave out a single detail and I'll gut you like I did to that other one, Alice. Okay, I'm sorry, Tommy wailed. I found the rabbit down by the river and I shot it with my slingshot and hit it in the eye. The rabbit was wiggling around on the ground and I wanted it to stop, but it didn't, so I hit it with a rock. I hit it 4 times and then it stopped moving. When it stopped moving, I cut out its eye with a stick and then I put dirt in the hole. And then I stabbed the rabbit with the stick some more because I thought that it was funny. Its guts were coming out. And Daddy came to get me after that, so I threw the rabbit in the river and I ran away. I'm sorry, please don't kill me. The old man glowered down at the boy. It seemed that all Tommy's retelling of the story had managed to do was make him angry. Despicable. This child, if allowed to live, will become a sadistic monster. He is a devil, a worthless scourge that needs to be eliminated. You see that now, Martin, do you not? I am not the reprehensible beast that you think I am. I kill to protect. Heinous as it was, he's still a kid. We can help him, people change. If you end his life now, you'll never give him the chance. Besides, I don't believe a word you say. Why would you chop up your victims and throw them into a stew if you only kill to protect? You're the monster here, not him. No matter, believe me or not, it makes no difference. I've explained my reasoning. Now, if you'll be so kind to pay close attention to what you are about to witness. I kept this boy alive for this moment. You will soon suffer the same fate. Before I had a chance to interject, the old man's body began to writhe and pulse. Fingers extended into claws, skin morphed into scales, and 2 additional heads sprouted from the creature's body. Long serpentine necks bent like sunflowers at dusk, all 3 looming directly over Tommy. Their razor-sharp teeth glimmered, saliva dripping from their lips. One of the heads drew closer to the child, a slender, forked tongue emerging from its gaping maw. The thing's jaws unhinged, hovering over their victim, ready to snap shut at a moment's notice. My heart hammered in my chest and I grew lightheaded. Creel still had me at gunpoint. Even so, I knew what I had to do. I turned to the abomination and for a split second I fired my stun gun. Fortunately, it was a big target, and to my satisfaction, electricity jolted through the creature's body. It howled in pain and fell onto its side, one of its heads landing in the scalding pot over the fire. I squeezed my eyes shut, expecting to feel the cold embrace of death at any moment. Soon a bullet would ricochet through my brain and that would be the end of me. But to my shock, that moment never came. After a tense few seconds of silence, I pried my eyes open to find Creel pulling a pair of energy-containing handcuffs from his belt. The creature was now gone, the old man's body lying in its place. He was motionless but still breathing, staring forward as if in a trance of his own. How? Why? I stuttered as Creel slapped the cuffs on the old man. A grin inched across his lips and he shot me a wink. "They've got this new tech that I forgot to tell you about," he said, indicating a bracelet on his wrist. "Anti-hypnosis capabilities. I was aware of my surroundings the entire time. I could feel this thing pulling the strings and I let it take control for a while until the right moment." I found myself both impressed and pissed off. "Well, why didn't you do anything about it sooner?" "I put my trust in you, Marty. You're a seasoned vet, and on top of that, I needed you to see that I wasn't the stupid new guy you thought I was. You had your plan, but I had one of my own," he said, tightening the handcuffs. "Plus, if Tommy really did all those awful things to that rabbit, that should have scared him straight. Isn't that right, Tommy? No more hurting animals." Tommy vehemently nodded his head. "I won't hurt any more animals, I promise." I stood outside of the ranger's office smoking a cigarette. It felt deserved after the night that we had had. "Mind if I burn one?" I turned to find my partner walking toward me. "I do mind. Sorry, I'm not lending them out," I said, inhaling deeply. "Huh. Well, what changed? Yesterday you were practically begging me to pick up your nasty habit," he said, leaning against our vehicle. "Yeah, well, I misjudged you. You've got a good head on your shoulders, Norman. You don't need to muck that up by filling it with tar and chemicals." "Fair enough. The praise will have to suffice," he replied. "So you never did tell me. What was the creature we captured today? Was it what you thought it was?" I exhaled and then turned to him. "Yes, that thing was a Yao Guai. They originated from Chinese folklore. Fearsome beasts who can shapeshift and hypnotize their victims, like you saw back there. They're nothing to play around with." Creel's brows furrowed. "But if they originated in China, how did one end up in this neck of the woods? We're about as far away from Asia as you can get." Rookies, always full of questions," I said, shaking my head. "These monsters don't always stay where they start out. Wendigos, for example, those are northern creatures, but I've tracked them as far south as Brazil. The lore around most cryptids is just that. Stories made up and passed down and misremembered throughout the generations." Just then, Rick emerged from the ranger station. He approached us, his demeanor much more relaxed than the previous day. "Thank you both. I'll be able to take it from here. Tommy's parents are on the way to pick him up. I told them that he was found living with a pack of wild dogs. I'll contact the local police. You'll want to get out of here before they start sniffing around. It's a shame about Alice and Daryl." I nodded. "I've been working in this business for long enough to know that we'll take what we can get. You can't save them all." "Yeah, you're right, Marty. Anyway, you two drive safe. Rick's walkie-talkie suddenly crackled to life. The voice of one of his fellow rangers cut through the static. The man was in obvious distress. Rick, listen to me. About 3 miles. Trail." His words were choppy and I was having a hard time making them out. But the next time that he spoke, it came through with crystal clarity.
Werewolf. Werewolf spotted in Sardis.
Creel and I turned to each other. Both his face and Rick's went pale as sheets. Well, I said, producing another cigarette and taking a drag. Looks like our job here isn't done.
Nelson Asada, Dice, Creamy, Meat, Cashier, Malcolm Black, Talamagara, Justin Fotenauer, That One Woodsman, Die Can't Play, Dino, Deggy, MP Massacre 91, Leon Knott, SWAT, Kathy McGuire, Jimmy Griffin, Miss Eldridge, Dragon Slayer 048, Takeo Zarilla, Sanjay Anthem, Sleepy Shroomy, Mark Norman, Mina Gitter, Richard French, yours truly, Omni Rubix, Sonic GMT, Wayward Son, Caleb Windsor, Never Enough, Russell and Flo, Stevie B 7649, Ray Weingartner, Stephen King 04, Shrimpo the Shrimp, Genevieve Sweet, Lone Wolf Sam, Ivory Sage, Lunas TV, I Am Loki 5849, Chicago Born and Bred, Paige Martin, Jacob Barlett, Deuce, Chris Lalo,